And we are live. Okay, let me turn off the sound as soon as it pops up. So my video window is open in another window, and start playing whenever it catches up. You know, whenever the lag is.
Started now. The buffering, the lag is actually shorter now.
There we go. Now there's a commercial.
I got no commercial on mine. You're only getting money from yourself.
So you are giving a
Creator Day.
Creator Day tomorrow, right? In English.
That's right. Only one in Japan.
Good. Well, I encouraged Unrested to approach the Osaka people.
Yeah.
And he's supposedly going to do one in English in Osaka.
Oh, cool. Well, that's good to hear.
They have a really... Check out Soji Max's video.
Yeah.
You know Soji Max, right?
Yeah.
They did the mannequin challenge.
Yeah.
With the whole group, and it's really good.
This is the next up group or something. Oh, the Creator Day.
Yeah, the Creator Day, I guess, about 2 weeks ago.
I think I saw Muscle Watching promoting that. I hadn't watched it, but yeah.
Really good.
Yeah, I guess you should check that out.
I thumbed it up and automatically tweets out. But hey guys, welcome to another 2.5 Oyajis. It's been a couple weeks. Last weekend, I think I was in the hospital still, or maybe just recovering.
Yeah, pneumonia. You feeling better from that?
Oh yeah, I had some alcohol today for the first time in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I had a couple drinks today, so.
Actually, it's good for the short notice. It's a good crowd popping in. And Naranagi is indeed 113 yen to the dollar. It looks like the dollar loves Trump.
Yeah.
US.
And apparently, who's the really Buffett?
Yeah.
What's his name? Jimmy Buffett.
Warren Buffett.
Jimmy Buffett or
Warren Buffett.
Are you sure? I'm pretty sure Jimmy Buffett's a really
Jimmy's his brother. He owns like a chain of restaurants.
Okay. The Warren Buffett predicts that the Trump campaign is going to be great for business, for the stock market at least. So we'll see. But today, as you can tell, this is kind of a sudden idea.
Yep.
Japan versus the world, cultural differences, and you guys are going to help contribute by just throwing out topics that we will, both of us being veterans of the Japanese life, but still quite foreign. And by the way, let me ask you this. I often get this silly comment like, you're always going to be a gaijin, or do you feel like the Japanese don't accept you yet? And my whole thing with that is I'm a foreigner, and I'm a foreigner living in Japan. I'm quite happy in that capacity, and that's my existence, and I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I'm black and I'm proud. By the way, Els Witch, someone first time ever catching a live show. So welcome, Els Witch. Nice to have you here.
Witch, huh?
Yeah, it comes down to
the drinking witch. I think she drinks ale and she's a witch.
Makes sense. And from Qatar, hey, Saad El Bakr, nice to have you as well. Nice to have someone from Qatar here.
It tells where you're from, by the way. Just to let us know. We've got people from Malaysia, Qatar, Tokyo, of course, Hokkaido.
And coming back to the question about identity or whatever, you'll always be a foreigner? Well, duh. I mean, if you're not comfortable with being a foreigner, you just go back to the one place in the world where you're not a foreigner, and that's fine. And, some people, they find travel interesting because they enjoy the experience of being a foreigner, but they don't want to, they like that kind of as a one-off thing, not as a permanent thing. I think if you stay in Japan pretty much more than 3 years, certainly more than 5 years, you cross a threshold where you no longer are hung up on how other people identify you or how you look or what your identity is. You just kind of become comfortable in the life that you have.
3 to 5 years. I think some people go like 7 or 8 years before they get to that stage.
I generally find you don't meet many. You'd have to be pretty messed up to go 7 years without getting on top of that stuff. I generally find people are pretty mellowed by about 5. Well, I guess maybe you've met some people like that.
Maybe Tokyo's a little bit different because you have a lot more foreigners there.
Well, that's true as well. Yeah, and Tokyo, I think, is also an easier city to be a foreigner in. It's relatively comfortable.
Right.
You don't stand out.
Let's talk a little bit about a little differences in the way differences. Okay, so number one, language. Yeah. Language acquisition. It's been my experience that you don't need to speak Japanese at all, and you can survive fine. And there are tons of foreigners here whose Japanese pretty much sucks.
Yeah.
But they get along fine in this country. Well, I think in the States, and how about New Zealand, I think it would be difficult to not acquire some level of competence in the English language.
Well, the example I always use with that, when I'm getting pressured by my relatives to make sure that my son speaks English, which he doesn't, um, and they always say, why don't you put him into an English school, into an international school? And I always say, well, think of me as being like a Chinese family that's just arrived in New Zealand or Australia, and they have Chinese schools and they have kids who come up through those schools, and they live in New Zealand for years, and there's a sufficient community there. This is true of Canada as well, that there are a lot of Chinese people and people from other communities who can live for years in New Zealand or Australia and not really speak much English. And I sort of say to my own relatives, well, so what do you think of that? Do you think that's smart of those families to raise them in schools where they don't really interact with the community, where they live in a bubble and they don't speak the language? And so, yeah, I want them both. But at the same time, what's more important to me is that they integrate where they are. So I'd say it's probably definitely, English, there is more of an onus to speak English, and more Japanese will want to speak English with you, and they'll see you and they'll expect you to speak English, and you get all that sort of thing. But I still think you should have some aspiration to speak Japanese. Definitely less pressure in Japan. In fact, I know people who teach English, sometimes they feel a pressure to not learn Japanese, because particularly in the countryside, sometimes people feel like that is polluting their pure tape recorder. They're worried that if they learn Japanese, they'll become bad English speakers like them or something.
I've heard that, and actually, I got a couple of friends who speak a broken, not purposely use like screwed up Japanese.
Yeah.
In their language. Like, dude, that was so kate. And that's some. I got some really. I got this out of the Gomi yesterday. I better Jumbi. They mix it up a little bit.
That's something as well. A lot of young people and a lot of multicultural people do. I mean, when I was learning as well, it's kind of exciting when you learn words that you can invent a kind of a code that can only be understood by people who are like understanding both languages. That was kind of a novelty thing. I think I did that myself for a couple of years. I like to mix them up a lot. But frankly, yeah, after about 2 years of doing it, it just sounds stupid. So you kind of stop. Although I guess I do still mix up Japanese a little bit. Sometimes there are some words which are just easy to use. There's some words where the English doesn't really work very well.
Right.
Yeah.
So basically, if you're living, how do I say this? If you're in Japanese society, it's better to learn. It's possible to survive without learning Japanese. But
yes, unfortunately.
But unless you're living in one of those communities in the States, like a Cuban or Chinese, or even Russian community, you pretty much need to learn English.
There's an interesting thing on this as well. One thing that distinguishes America from Canada and New Zealand and Australia. Canada and New Zealand, anyway, we have proactively multicultural immigration policies. We encourage people to bring and preserve their cultures when they come. America's melting pot policy, they've got a policy that once you come to America, you become American and you share this shared American culture. So America's more pushing.
You've heard of the salad bowl theory, right?
I've heard of it, yeah.
Right. So the idea is, with a melting pot, everyone, you lose
becomes American, yeah.
Right, but with the salad bowl, you keep your identity. Like you're a cauliflower, you're broccoli. You stay that way.
Yeah, but Canada's proactively because they've got the whole thing in the first place of having French people there and non-English speakers. In Canada, that they really do let you speak whatever language you want to speak, and there are all of these areas that don't speak English at all in Canada. New Zealand less so, but we have a similar sort of soft view on trying to impose identity. But I think when people go to America, even from China or Japan, they feel like, oh, I'm in America, I should be more American. I think that is a difference. I think there's more pressure in America.
My parents, coming from Peru, they thought, okay, we're going to buy American cars.
Yeah.
They only do
America's a powerful brand,
But in Florida, I think you can take the driver's license in Spanish.
Okay. Well,
check this out. This is very interesting. I went to get my driver's license renewed here in Japan. And guess how many languages you can take your driver's license in Japan?
I know if you have an interpreter, I think you can take a bunch of
They already have 11 languages translated.
Yeah. Okay, 11 languages.
On paper, yeah. She showed me. I asked the woman, she showed me, and she was, this is Portuguese, this is English, this is Spanish, this is French. Yeah. It was amazing.
Okay, 11. Well, that's pretty, there you go. They're very, very...
I'll have to show the video sometime. But one of the languages she said they need more of is Turkish, because there's a lot of Turkish people and they don't have that.
That's interesting. Yet. And that's a tough language as well. It's not very...
Right.
compatible with others. So, okay, that's cool.
Okay. So that's one language acquisition. Let's jump to the. Would you like to? Would anyone like to suggest one, or do you want to put out the next one?
You have 30 seconds in the comments to make a suggestion for us on the comparison. By the way, so we are comparing America, Western English-speaking world, and Japan, right?
Okay, well, someone talking about driver's license. So here's another one. I don't know in New Zealand, but driver's license in Japan, basically you almost have to go to school to get your driver's license.
Not if you're from New Zealand. If you're from New Zealand or any of those countries that drives on the correct side of the road, it's pretty much just they just translate your license. It's just a paperwork exercise.
No. I mean, in New Zealand, do you
Yeah.
get your driver's license? Do you study with your dad? Did your dad teach you? Do your friends teach you?
Oh yeah, I didn't. Now what happened with that? I went to a driving school because if you go to a driving school for like 3 days, you get to cut your restricted license period from being 18 months to 9 months.
Oh.
So there's an incentive system that you just show up at a school for, you don't do any driving either. It's all just paper stuff and watching videos for 3 days.
In the States, we have an option in high school to take a driving class, but most people learn from their fathers.
Yeah,
But it's everybody goes to like a 6-month.
So how did you learn how to drive?
My dad.
Well, wait a minute. J.W. Kraweski, I'll point out that we're in Japan, and in Japan, the correct side of the road is the same side as what is correct in New Zealand, Australia. So you're saying get out of here, but I'm sorry if we're talking about Japan, so I'm pretty comfortable saying the correct side of the road for this. And it was only Napoleon that changed the sides of the road. You know about that, right? How you guys
I think I
drive
heard
on the wrong side.
How does it go?
So ever since Roman times, everybody drove on the left-hand side of the road. On the right, left-hand side of the road, like Japan and New Zealand and Britain do.
Mm-hmm.
It was Napoleon in the 19th century. He changed it from the left to the right as part of a strategy to confuse the invading English by switching sides of the road.
Really?
It was just, when he was controlling Europe, he did it. And at that time, America had just been won independence because, the French helped them.
That's weird.
And so they followed the French again because they didn't like the British. That became the global standard, but it was actually just a stupid idea of Napoleon's.
Okay.
So it shows you're being occupied by Napoleon by driving on that side of the road.
I don't think I knew that story then. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. You have something?
Let's have a look.
I got a bunch.
Yeah. You go.
Okay. Just forgot one. Well, of course, nudity.
Nudity, yes, of course.
Nudity. This is funny. If you go to an onsen and you take off your clothes and you take baths with other people, not foreigners, right? You take a bath with everyone. I've heard. I don't know if this is true, but I've heard that a woman will. You have a little towel. They give you a little towel.
Yes.
A Japanese woman will cover up their breasts.
Yeah.
When they walk in. Is that right? No. They cover down here.
I don't know.
And Western women will generally cover up their breasts.
Why not? You've got 2 arms. Why not cover both?
I don't know. Maybe the big breasts. I don't know. But generally speaking, the focus on what you want to cover up is different. Apparently, now with guys it's the same.
Yeah.
It's the only one, but with women apparently it's a little bit different. But Japanese are much more at ease, I think, being naked in front of strangers.
I remember this. My first experience at a Japanese onsen. My first one was in Saga. My second one was near Mount Fuji, and it was with like 90 of my co-hires who I just joined a company with.
Mm-hmm.
So these were people who I was joining. These were my co-workers, and I was suddenly naked with 90 of them.
Yeah.
And so I was kind of embarrassed. And first I used that towel and I held it down there. I was kind of, but then, you sort of look at the old fellas walking around and some of the people in the pools, and you know where most of the old fellas put the towel?
On their heads.
Yeah. On top of their heads, right?
Yeah.
And in time, I just thought, why am I the one covering up? Geez, you guys should be covering up. Seriously, I'm going to put this on top of my head and just let you guys feel uncomfortable.
You should be covering up.
That's right.
Your head.
Well, plus my head. Well, I actually had hair at that particular time, but yes.
So it's just different. It's just funny. I think Japanese in general are comfortable with nudity. I think foreigners in general are usually a little bit shocked when they encounter that.
That is true. That is definitely true. Nudity, yes.
Okay. What do we got? Work ethic. We have a request for work ethic. Why did you talk about that? You're more of a typical work salaryman guy.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I always had this idea. I think Japanese typically work more than New Zealanders do. XL. That's you. You're a big man.
New Zealanders work more than Japanese?
No. Japanese definitely have more of a work ethic than New Zealanders. What was interesting was when I was working like past 10, 11 o'clock every night, my first job, sometimes up to midnight, every New Zealander I talked to said the same thing, which was, how could you be doing efficient work or proper work if you're working that late? If you're that tired, how is it possible that you could be doing work that's worthwhile? There's an idea that if you work so long that you start to feel tired, it's actually better to not do work than to do bad work, which you assume you're doing if you're tired. Every New Zealander reacts the same like that. And I just about worked myself to death in Japanese companies. So then I went to join an American law firm where I thought, hey, I'm going to a foreign firm so that everyone's going to go home at 6 o'clock and everyone's going to think it's ridiculous to work crazy hours like Japanese do. And what I learned was Americans, I think, work more than Japanese. I mean, granted, I was in a law firm, so not typical. These are people who are paid by the hour and do all-nighters and stuff like that all the time. But the difference was when I was working with Japanese people, they were kind of there because they felt like they had to be part of the team. They had to be keeping up appearances, that that they're putting an effort in, that they're not leaving their co-workers behind. And, so there's this kind of group kind of thing that, people are working, but they're kind of, putting on a show of working to some extent. There's lots of tasks to sort of do. Nobody's rushing. Nobody's doing anything urgently. They're just there. With the Americans, when they're working to 3 o'clock in the morning, they want to be there. Yeah, it's a big difference. They actually love the work that they're doing, and they're there. There is much more of a, I don't know, to me, Americans really just genuinely are into it, which was, again, I culturally as a New Zealander, I couldn't relate to.
So you think most Japanese don't want to be working at 2 or 3 a.m.?
Yeah, I think they feel like they get recognized and praised for doing it, and and they find things to do. It's not like they're doing nothing, but I think everyone kind of wishes they could go home, but they build their lives where it's like the bukatsu thing, the club thing, where you have to show how dedicated you are to the club, right. Or else you're not fully accepted by it. You don't have a future in it. It's the same thing with work. If you are thinking of things to do outside of work and feeling like at work, like you want to leave, it's like you're never going to get ahead. Your boss isn't going to trust you. You're not going to get good evaluations. So everyone just focuses on making their whole lives about, getting ahead at work.
Right.
But they kind of do it around this kind of thinking that they have to do it, whereas Americans are genuinely more internally motivated, which is kind of crazy. I'm convinced.
Well, when I first opened my school, I would stay there until way past 2 a.m. on many nights because it was my school and I was really excited about it.
Yeah.
Making my lessons and getting ready for the next day. And when I owned the bar, even though we were making very little money, I would keep open until 2 or 3 a.m. all the time. Yeah. So, I wanted to.
That's a good thing. It's something which I respect, actually. But it did make me think, again, as a New Zealander, where everyone goes to bed at 9 o'clock at night and wakes up at 6 in the morning and, goes home from work at 6 and watches this, the 6 o'clock news is the top-rated TV show, i.e. everyone's at home by 6 to watch it.
Wow. That's amazing.
Coming from a country like that, and I did hear about this with Americans, how there's a really high use of, high rate of use of Ritalin, like basically like prescription speed and brain drugs and stuff by Americans to sort of to stay lucid and productive even when they're tired. And basically legalized crystal meth, right? That's what Ritalin and Adderall basically are. Right. And Americans use that shit because they want to be as productive as possible for as long as possible. Wow. That concept is so alien to me. So I don't know, I kind of found like, I thought Japanese were like the hardest working people anywhere, but I'm actually convinced now Americans are, and I think y'all are crazy.
Speaking of drugs, that's another topic.
Yes.
The Japanese have a very different opinion about. As you know, in America now, they've legalized marijuana use in, I think,
bunch of states.
Recreational marijuana use now, I think in Colorado has been legalized.
Yeah, California just legalized for recreational, but it wasn't legalized until now. But Colorado's had it for a while. Washington State's had it. Yeah. Oregon's had it.
In California, yeah. Maybe I was thinking California. Anyway, but in Japan, as you know, even the thought of marijuana is it's just, you're just a criminal. You're just a terrible, terrible person.
Yeah. Although that said, I know a fair number of people who use it, but they are people who probably even themselves would admit that it is criminal behavior. and I'd say the general view of society. I mean, to hear that some celebrity was arrested with 2 grams of marijuana, like in one joint or something, that's shocking. You have to quit all of your work. You have to, that's jail time.
Well, Chuck and Asuka broke up over that, right?
Yeah. Well, did they actually break up over that? I know that.
Well, one of them went to jail.
Recently, one of them went to jail for it recently, but that had already been broken up for a long time.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I thought they were. Really? Are you sure?
I don't know if they're still performing, but one of them went to jail recently, anyway, last year. Right?
Yeah. That's true. But when that happens, you're pretty much screwed.
So the thing is with America, and the whole debate about drugs, and it's the same in New Zealand on this, people talk about how they talk about prohibition, they talk about how different drugs have different effects and how they should be regulated differently. They compare it to alcohol, and they say that alcohol, people fight, they get into car accidents, and they kill people. Smoking gives you lung cancer, and look at the effects of MDMA and marijuana and these other sort of drugs, and say they're not as harmful at all. So Americans, we're all kind of taught to think critically and to kind of evaluate whether this law is valid or not and challenge it. And I've sat in court cases in New Zealand where people are challenging the hypocrisy of the law, right? In Japan, no one ever challenges the hypocrisy of any law. It's either legal or it's illegal. And to try to explain to someone that marijuana is less harmful than alcohol, they look at you like you're talking crazy shit.
Yeah.
It's like, what you're saying is completely irrelevant. Alcohol is legal. I'm allowed to drink alcohol. I'm not allowed to smoke marijuana. How you could even argue? How could you even imagine in any way, science or otherwise, that marijuana is more okay than alcohol? It's illegal. So, you can't have the discussion with anyone.
Come over here. I mean, even in the comments, you can see some people saying, I believe marijuana has good properties. Yeah, maybe, that's fine. But if you're a foreigner in Japan, you do not want to be caught with marijuana. Don't do it. It's not worth it. If really that's the point. That's so important for you, then don't come here. I mean, unless you really want to risk everything.
Well, that's right. And I know some New Zealanders who have been deported for it, and never allowed back into the country. And if you get deported, by the way, if you get caught and deported, you have a record. I think you're not allowed to re-enter for is it 5 years or 10 years?
10 years, I think, but I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I know a guy, not Peruvian, a Japanese guy got arrested in California for marijuana, and he wasn't allowed to go back to California for 10 years.
Oh, really? Yeah.
But he was waiting, and finally he could go back. So he was like, I'm going back finally after 10 years.
Yeah. Yeah, and what I'd say is, be real careful when you're overseas. Ty there is saying that if you're in another country, don't break their laws. Yeah, I'd say be super careful about it. And actually I've been in situations in Japan where I've been around where everyone there was smoking. And I was lucky. I was with friends that trusted me and that knew me well and that I knew well. And so when they asked me, and I could have done it, actually, and it would have been totally fine in the space that I was.
Where were you in Japan?
In Japan, I was, surfing. Basically, my surfing friends, they all smoked.
Okay.
And I would actually, and I said, look, I just don't want to do it because just in general in Japan, it's just not as a foreigner, I'm taking a much bigger risk than you are as a Japanese person, so I'd just rather not go near it. Right. And, if you're around strangers, they don't, they're like, anywhere, they're like, well, why are you saying that? Are you religious or something? You get that in New Zealand. But in Japan, it's kind of like I'm lucky I have good friends who are cool with that. And in fact, I just become the designated driver when that happens. So it's cool for me.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, okay. No. People do it, but man, you get in so much trouble.
Defending marijuana. It's fine. That's not the point. The point is...
That's not the point. So the logic you'll run into is you can say all that stuff all day. You can bring a 500-page, Supreme Court overturning, logical scientific argument, and every Japanese person will say, yeah, but it's illegal. You'll never get them to understand.
Exactly. Right. It's like going to Iran and saying you're gay. It's fine, but it's illegal. It's illegal there. You don't want to say it, even though that's what you believe. Okay.
Oh, it's different to saying it. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Figured that wasn't very good comparison. But train etiquette. Here's something that's funny. Japanese are infamous, or no, I should say famous for being very polite people, but not at rush hour, in my experience.
That's an interesting one. And training, well, the thing is, most people don't ride trains in other countries as well, especially in America and so on, so that's one thing.
Well, New York City, I've seen lots of people.
Oh, in New York City, sure, yeah.
And they're much more polite, I think, than the Japanese are.
I don't know. Well, you have different culture in different cities as well. Tokyo is different to Nagoya, is different to Osaka. You get that as well. In Tokyo,
what is it like in Tokyo? Because in Nagoya at rush hour, people are pushing. People are rude. Nobody gives up seats. People put their bags next to them. Nobody has any consideration for anybody.
Well, again, I'm hearing Elvis singing in the ghetto in the background as you talk about Nagoya's trains, but no, not in Tokyo, at least where I am. I mean, there's with the full rush hour when the trains are packed, people kind of push, but they don't overtly push. There's kind of a passive aggressive thing because everyone's trying to cram in and try not to make too much fuss. The bag on the seat, man, no, you won't get away with that in Tokyo. People will call you out, you know, no, you can't do that.
Oh, good.
The direct pushing and stuff as well, you'll get occasionally, there'll be some old salaryman might give a shove, but no, I would say everyone is kind of putting up with it, you know, equally. Giving up seats doesn't happen as much as it should. The thing about Tokyo, which I think is different to Nagoya and Osaka, is that everyone in Tokyo is on these trains which are incredibly packed, but they're trying to deny that anyone else the existence of the other people around them, even though there are people pressed up against their faces. It's like, you don't exist, I'm in my happy place. In Osaka and Nagoya, they're much more aware of the other people around them, and they actually push and stuff like that. And they talk. In Osaka, I hear that they even talk with strangers on trains and stuff.
Where, in Osaka?
Yeah. You know, people on the trains in Osaka, in Tokyo, even like packed with hundreds of people so you can't even move. The trains are like libraries. They're dead silent. You know, when I rode the subway in Osaka, you can hear people laughing everywhere. People are talking loudly. People having, you know, like loud conversations.
Quiet. I feel like what is solid. Every 2 or 3 days, you have someone get really angry and start pushing.
Yeah.
When they get off when they try to get on at Nagoya Station.
Yeah, occasionally you will get this. So the one time in Tokyo, you'll get pushing and raised voices when someone's trying to get off the train, and you know, and they're like the only one. And they're trying to get through the people. But even then, there's kind of a sumo saying, and they're trying to make it look like they're not pushing while pushing, and they're trying to use polite language to come out. But you don't really get people being really shitty, I find.
How about giving up seats to elderly people?
Yeah, you don't get that as often as you should hear. I think it happens. I'd say it happens about 30% of the time that it should. I'd say probably in New Zealand on buses and stuff like that, I'd say it probably happens, 70, 80%. It happens much more in New
Peru,
Zealand.
they will beat you for not getting up and giving you a seat. I'm serious. When I was 14 years old, I went to visit with my brother, and we were riding the bus. Not even we were just talking and sitting on the bus.
Yeah.
I started getting full, and these women got on.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Get up!" I'm like, what? And they started hitting us. Get up! What kind of rude person are you? And they actually hit us with their handbags. So yeah, you learn. Fights. I have never seen a fight on a train. I think.
No.
No.
And they make the news when they happen, you know, but no, I've never seen a fight on a train.
Ahmed Usul says Kansai people are weird. I think they're very friendly. I like Kansai people.
Weird isn't the right word. They're friendly. I'd say they actually break many of the stereotypes. The stereotypical Japanese is a Tokyo person, I think, for a lot of stereotypes that go overseas. But Tokyo really isn't like the rest of Japan. And Osaka people, they're very open, they're very humorous, they're very friendly. All the things that you don't think of as Japanese, Osakans are. It's not weird. I think it's actually kind of healthy. I find it refreshing to go there.
More international, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So generally speaking, I'd say they're a little bit weird about.
There's a good one here from Warren Riemann talking about how people will fall asleep and rest their head on your shoulder and stuff.
Right.
That's kind of
that happened once or twice.
I used to live at the very end of the Chuo line, the main line in Tokyo, 1 hour out of Tokyo, so I had it like almost every day.
Wow.
Yeah. It was actually,
you'll never get rolled.
You mean robbed? That's getting robbed, right, while you're asleep?
Yeah, when you're asleep. My brother got rolled in New York City, falling asleep on the train.
Yeah, that won't happen.
Yeah.
Again, if it happens, it'll make the news.
Oh, really?
I've heard of it happening, but I heard of it in the news.
It must happen.
Yeah, there are people who, again, I used to live at the very end of the Chuo line, which is 1 hour out of Tokyo. And the thing about the final stop on that line, which is where I was living at the time, about 80% of the people who get off there actually live there. And about 20% of the people who get off there fell asleep because they were drunk on the train and just went to the end of the line without waking up. And so there are pickpockets who will target those 20%. They'll try to figure out who are the people who missed their stop because they were asleep and sometimes pickpocket them. And that's why the train guards come straight on the train at the end of the line.
Oh, really?
But again, I know about this because I heard about it on the news.
Okay.
So, pickpocketing, makes the news in Japan.
I got questions about tattoos. That's something I get all the time, and I've actually got a rude letter the other day claiming, you guys do a great job, but you do a very piss poor job about explaining the acceptance of tattoos. So,
I think it's changing. Times are changing. They are Japanese. You do see them more often. You go to like Shibuya or Harajuku, or you'll see a lot of young Japanese are visibly showing tattoos and walking around. And in those places, they're doing fine. Of course, you have more and more foreigners here who are showing a lot more tattoos now, and I think Japanese are still in some ways struggling to figure out what to do about that. The Japan Onsen Association had a big meeting just last month to try to figure out a strategy for what to do with foreigners with tattoos, with a view to the Olympics. And
onsen in my neighborhood and that I've seen around here. My wife and I like to go to the onsen sometimes.
Yeah.
They still have signs up that say no tattoos, even the really big ones, even the ones in the country, ones in the city.
In rural areas and in areas which have known Yakuza populations, the police will go around all businesses and they'll go around the bathhouses and they will specifically ask them, they'll give the businesses the signs. I mean, the signs are often these, printed sort of things which the police give them.
Oh, really?
Which is, they'll have one for the door saying, we don't do business with mobsters. And when they say mobsters, they'll show someone with tattoos as the picture on it. Right. And then inside, they turn away people with tattoos. Yeah, the police actually ask businesses to do this. It's a way of putting pressure on and trying to box in the Yakuza. And I know I always, maybe I'm guilty of playing up too much the angle that Japanese people see this and they think that people who have tattoos are mobsters, but that is what elderly people will always think in Japan, or at least, for the next 20, 30 years. It's maybe changing at the young level, but again, you have to kind of be sensitive that it still isn't readily accepted yet. It's changing. And this is why with the Osaka,
they were going to try to push Japanese to start letting them into onsens, but I haven't seen any changes yet. Just something.
Well, again, a lot of young people who are coming now, I think they all have tattoos pretty much now, and so you hear from them that, oh yeah, there are tattoos, so you can get information on onsen which are tattoo friendly or tattoo foreigner friendly. So it sounds like things are getting better. I, of course, don't have any tattoos, so I don't know. If you don't have any tattoos and you really, really want to come to Japan, I'd suggest staying tattoo-free if you already have them. Again, you have to wear bandages, learn the etiquette. You have to cover them up. And
if you go to a gym, too, I knew a lot of foreigners in gyms who wear one band over one arm where they have their tattoos.
And the thing is, they get these tattoos from like their ear, down their neck, down their arm and shit like that now. And it's, that you can't cover up. Again, don't do that before you come to Japan. If you know that you're coming to Japan, if you get one that you can cover up. But these ones that you can't cover up, gyms, spas, onsen, public baths, they specifically have rules where they're asked by the police to turn away people with tattoos.
Right. Of course, they don't think, as Tai Naka says, they don't assume you're Yakuza at all.
No.
But it's just the rule. It's the rule in front of the building. If there's a sign that says no tattoos, that's just
it's like the marijuana thing. It's once it's the rule, it's the rule. Everyone doesn't have to think anymore. But the other thing is that the rule was introduced because it was introduced with the assumption that it would be a way of preventing Yakuza from coming in. So there's this problem as well. If you differentiate Yakuza from non-Yakuza with tattoos, it stops being a general rule that's got nothing to do with Yakuza but just happens to catch them out, and it becomes Yakuza, and then you kind of piss them off. So there's this kind of deniability for the business as well. You think about when they've got some angry mobsters who come in and they say, hey, we don't let your type come in here, and you get shot. They say, no, I'm sorry, we'd love to let you come in, but we have this stupid rule that the police made us put up here that we don't have tattoos. I'm sorry, I think it's a stupid rule. But if then they let a foreigner walk in behind them, the guy would get shot. So they have to kind of be
to be clear, walking around in Japan with tattoos is not a problem. No one's going to hassle you. It's fine. So you don't have to cover your...
Not in public.
If you want to get a job as an English teacher, for example, or at any kind of reputable company, or just, generally speaking, you don't want to show tattoos.
Don't show them.
Trying to go into an onsen or join a gym, you don't want to show your tattoos.
I'll tell you what as well.
It's probably fine.
I went out to lunch with Betamax DC, and he's got serious tats. I didn't actually realize from his videos how tattooed he was. He's really tattooed.
He's got him on his neck, right, coming down.
He's got his on his neck and all the way down his arm to above his wrist, like onto his hand. So again, just can't cover up. And he was wearing like a collared shirt. He was trying to be sensitive, collared shirt, long sleeve, but even then it was still showing. And I was like in a Thai restaurant, in a flash Thai restaurant, Central Tokyo. I was shouting him lunch. And the Japanese waiter was visibly uncomfortable at his appearance. And, you know, I mean, again, that's not normal, but that is something that, and I could kind of tell looking at him, he was uncomfortable at the waiter feeling uncomfortable.
Right.
But this is something that you have to deal with, like, you'll have to face if you're like that. You know, again, it's improving, it's changing, but
But he also always wears sunglasses and hats, right?
Yeah, but we were sitting down for lunch, so he took off the jacket and everything. We were talking. So it's actually the first time I'd seen him actually with the hat off and the...
Okay.
Yeah. But, so it's kind of funny.
It's becoming more open, but still, it's still a little bit of a problem.
Yeah.
Let's see. What are some other things that people might want to know about? Any questions here?
By the way, Sergio, is that yes, Bo is saying tattoos are not a problem in Japan, guys. He has tattoos, had no problem going to public baths or anywhere else. Yeah, good for you. And again, I don't have tattoos and I don't have the thing, but I do see the signs in places that I go to. I think if you go to a lot of tourist areas, like outside of Tokyo in particular, it's changing, but, you know, hey, good for you that you have no problems.
Yeah, there are a lot of public baths that will deny you access, and gyms. Well, I know people who've been kicked out of gyms because they had tattoos.
Sergio is talking about his own experience, then good on you. Good, you know, congratulations, you did well, and hopefully your next trip, the situation here will be better, so that you'll still have another experience like that. But you know, I hear from people who have them who tell me that they have to deal with this regularly, and I see the signs when I go to Onsen myself.
Mully's been going to the gym for a while, and then one day they noticed a tattoo on his leg.
Yeah.
And they brought him to another room. They made him cover it up.
The teddy bear.
Yeah, I don't know, some Indian pattern on his leg.
Okay.
Yeah, but again, it's not that big a deal. If you have them, I wouldn't say don't come to Japan if you have tattoos. You can still come, but they'll probably you may have some problems. That's all.
Here's a good question. Here is.
Chikan. We forgot about trains.
Yeah, Chikan.
You may meet a Chikan. A person may grab your ass.
This happened to you?
No, not personally. I'm still waiting. But apparently that does happen a lot more here. I mean, than it does in other countries. In New York City, they would probably kill you.
Well,
everyone would gang up on you and pound you into the dirt.
You'd hope so. But there again, I've heard that perverts are a problem in New York subways as well. They're a big problem in Iran and some Middle Eastern countries.
Oh, really?
Big problem in India. And unfortunately, they are a big problem in Japan, and there have been some measures taken where, like now in Tokyo, a lot of the major lines will, in the morning rush hour, will have the front two cars of the train will be women only.
Yeah, we have the middle one car. It's just
yeah. There was a big time where there was like the news was talking about it all the time. There were all these TV dramas about wrongly accused of being a Chicana. There was like this time where it seemed like every train was full of Chikan, and I don't know whether it's just like faded away and is less common now, or it's just the media's focused on other things.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I get my impression is it's less of a topic than it was like 10 years ago.
Yeah, you're
but
right.
I assume it's still happening. And the other thing is that most women that you talk to, women have such a different experience of life in Japan. A pretty high percentage of women, if you ask them if they've ever run into a Chikan, pretty high percentage, will say that they have.
Yes.
And that's a world I don't see. I mean, I've been in these trains all these years, and I've seen one or two in 20 years. I've seen one or two cases where I thought, I think that guy might be a Chikan, but you don't know for sure, and you don't know what to do.
Right.
So yeah, it's a problem.
I don't think I've ever seen a Chikan in action. Yeah. That would be a video though. Here's a question from Mara. Have you ever been denied service anywhere? I was at a restaurant where another foreigner was denied service. He pointed to us in exasperation, but because we spoke Japanese, we were fine. Okay. No, I've never. Well,
yeah.
Maybe my first week here, we walked into a tiny little bar and they said no foreigners, but it was like a bar that had like 6 seats, and I spoke no Japanese at all.
I've been trying to take a friend who was in Tokyo out for dinner, and there was like those little places, and the bar guy said straight away, no foreigners. I've been taken to health or to a sex establishment in Kabukicho by my friends after I just arrived in Japan, and was turned away from 3 of those places, and ended up not getting into any and going home by myself because my friends went in without me. They were good friends.
I've
What
heard
else?
that. Yeah. I have one of my students' husband owns one of those places, and she told me, yeah, they don't allow foreigners because foreigners don't understand the word stop. They don't understand that this is what is allowed, this is what's not allowed. And they always want to try to do something that's not on the menu.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm just trying to think. There was also the nastiest case of that. Actually, maybe the only case I can think of that really felt like discrimination the whole time I've been in Japan was I was trying to book a rugby ground. I used to live in England. I was trying to book a rugby ground.
Oh.
So you have to be a resident of the ward of the local government area to do it, and I was. So I went up to book a training ground for my team. And the guy in the city council office, he he sort of loudly turned around to the guy next to me and said, hey you, can you check the rule book to see if foreigners are allowed to book training grounds? And I was kind of flabbergasted, and I kind of said to him, in Japanese, I'm like, no, it's for kumin, right? It's for local residents. I'm a local resident. You want to see my ID? He said, yeah, check if foreigners can do it. He said it again. He kind of gave me a glare. He was a real nasty guy, actually. But you know what? That sort of thing is something that I know black people and, immigrants in New Zealand and Australia and America have to deal with almost daily. I've been here 20 years, and that's happened to me once. And, so I would say I'm doing okay. But,
I predicted that would happen to me when I walked in alone into a company that builds houses.
Yeah.
Because I have a small house here in Japan, right?
Yeah.
I walked in. I said, "Hey, I saw your sign that says you're building a house." Because this used to be an empty lot, and they had a sign that says, "We're going to build a house here. If you're interested, come by." And I liked the location, so I went over there by myself, and I walked in, and they were the nicest people in the world. They didn't give a shit that I was a foreigner.
Yeah.
They walked me in. They helped me with the. They said, "Okay, well, this is how the bank will work, and we suggest this bank. UFJ, okay, no problem." And yeah, they walked me through the whole thing, and then there was no problem at all. And then later, my wife came along to the second or third meeting. It was great, yeah. But I predicted they would give me a lot of hassle, but they didn't. I was happily surprised.
Well, here's the thing with my case as well. What I was dealing with, what seemed to be the only actual racist person I think I've ever dealt with in a service situation in Japan in 20 years. They checked the rules. The rules said there's no problem with foreigners reserving, and he let me reserve. He made the experience kind of unpleasant. He left a really bad taste the way that he sort of handled the situation, and he was doing it to be nasty. He was doing it to waste my time and to sort of, express his view indirectly that he thought I shouldn't be able to do it. But he still did it for me. So, things aren't so bad in Japan, really.
Yeah. You'll have some experiences, but it's nothing like other countries where...
Spiritual reality, I can see your posts.
What's he saying?
Yeah. I don't know what he's saying. He's asking, can we see? No one wants to say hi. Everyone, say hello to spiritual reality.
Denial that no one wants to say hi to me? Oh.
Yeah, everyone say hello now.
People don't say hi a lot. It's like big cities. And all big cities are like that. New York City.
Spiritual reality, welcome. Anything else?
You guys are rude.
Yeah, I saw something about that. I don't know what's going on there. So
okay. Oh, spiritual reality. You exist. Okay.
Yeah.
And on that note...
That's it. Now we've seen you, we're going to run away.
Dude, there's 100 people comment. There's 105 people watching. So if we don't see your comment, just be patient. Don't take it personal. Okay. Anyway, we're going to keep it short. I actually have a class at 11 because I was sick, as you guys know. I was in the hospital for 6 days.
Yep.
I'm way behind on classes, so I'm actually making some of those up doing Skype lessons.
Yeah. Cool.
My students are paid, and this is the only way I can make it up. So I have class at 11 p.m.
Let's remember, don't do any Anthony Weiner stuff over there. Just keep it all,
But good luck tomorrow. I mean, you don't need it. You'll be fine.
And don't say good luck. I've got a thing about that.
Break a leg.
Break a leg. Yes.
Break a leg. But yeah, it's too late to sign up anyway, right? For anybody?
It is.
Okay. How many people got signed up? Yeah.
I think you ended up with about 30.
Okay.
Good number. Should be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Okay. So have a good one. And we'll see you next Saturday on Hiko Simon's channel.
Right here.
Check link in the description. It's Hiko Simon, HIKO SAEMON. And that's all for now. Thanks for watching, guys.
Thank you.
We'll be back soon.
Cool.
See you next week on Hiko's channel. Good night, guys. Peace out.
Yeah.
Stop.